I didn't train at Michigan. One reason I came here was I was really attracted as a faculty to the intentional investment in making sure that I succeeded and that the mentorship that was created around that. One thing that was unique to Michigan as a faculty was having the launch teams. And just seeing this replicated for our residents has been amazing. It's something I wish I had during my training, because it definitely sets you on the right path and helps you develop all aspects of who you are. And sometimes it requires that intentional, a team of people pouring into you intentionally and taking that journey with you in order to help you meet those goals. So I think it's an exciting, a unique program that is not offered in a lot of places. So I'm glad you're learning a bit about it. I have the pleasure of serving as faculty advisor on 2 mentorship programs. One which I'll be discussing right now, and the second one you hear shortly after was from Dr. Valbuena. So this is the Anastomosis Mentorship Program. And for some of you, you might be wondering, why do we have another mentorship program? The launch team that has just been created or just been reviewed by Dr. Rivard with you did talk about mentorship. And so why is there a need to have a second overlapping sort of program? And I think what makes anastomosis a little bit different is that it fills this unique niche that sometimes the launch teams in that more formal program might not be able to reach. Before I dig into what anastomosis is about, I just wanted to give a shout out to these awesome people who are actually the minds and the brains behind the program, and especially to Dr. Mary Shen. She's the one with the blown up picture there. But Mary Shen is one of our clinical residents, and she's the one who came up with the idea for anastomosis. Just realizing that there was a need for intentional mentorship within for our residents, but also for some of our students. And we have several other residents indicated on that slide, in addition to medical students, Jessica Santos Parker, who's applying in general surgery this year, really excited about that, and then Dr. Sandro and Dr. George. So the slides I'll be sharing today are primarily Dr. Shen's, so I'll give her credit and thank you for allowing me to share her work with you. So there's been a lot that's been written about how surgical residency, even though it is a very fulfilling profession to go into, surgical training can be exhausting. It's long because we are sometimes in very stressful situations. We find these situations that happen where people end up being mistreated. There could be some verbal, physical abuse that happens, some discrimination. And all of that over time piles up and leads to a significant amount of burnout amongst our residents. The second trial, which was recently conducted, identified close to about 40% burnout amongst our trainees. And that is huge when you think about it, given the number of people who go into surgery, and to have about 40% having these issues. Of those respondents to a survey that they did, I think in 2014, 87% of the female respondents indicated that they had had some gender-based discrimination or some sort of mistreatment during their course of training, and that is huge. So being faced with this sort of data, trying to figure out what could be done about it, I think Dr. Shen, doing due diligence and searching the literature, was inspired by a lot of folks who've thought critically about this. And one particular person that she was inspired by was Dr. Julie Freshlag. Dr. Freshlag in this quote notes that there's this huge tide of surgical resident attrition, and she identified that mentorship was one of the ways that we could address it, just looking at the literature and what all the studies were showing. Dr. Freshlag went on to say that as educators and clinicians, we had a responsibility to cultivate and not to waste the valuable potential of our trainees, our medical students and our residents who trust us with their training, and hope that we help develop them into the excellent surgeons, clinician surgeons, and thought leaders So taking Dr. Freshler's quote to heart, Dr. Shen, our resident, ended up focusing on how we could intentionally build some sort of mentorship into our residency. And she focused on mentorship because we're looking at more long-term processes instead of just achieving one particular task, which is sometimes what you get if you have a coach. As also residents, it's very hard sometimes to leverage some of the opportunities that you get from a connector or a sponsor. And this just like different things I've gone through are just what we think about when we focus on the different types of sponsorship or mentorship or support a trainee can get during their residency or later on in their careers. So our focus was mainly on mentorship because we had found that this improves specialty choice, academic success. There's been a lot of work that shows that people get better, and it is a good way to address burnout. So anastomosis actually has, and it seems like a weird choice of a mentorship name. I'm a colorectal surgeon, and I hoped Dr. Shen was influenced by my choice of profession, but I think the reason she chose anastomosis was because within colorectal surgery, we're usually making connections between pieces of bowel or different things. And it is important that you make a connection that holds. Otherwise, you could have a lot of complications that occur. And so when we do make a connection between on anastomosis, when we are thinking about surgery, there are a lot of things we go into making that a solid, safe connection. And this is what she factored into creating anastomosis. So unlike the launch team, anastomosis actually revolves or is built upon a near mentorship program or system. So we have different levels of trainees who come together in order to support, but also to help people succeed by sort of filling in where some of the launch teams or some of our other clinical research mentors might not be able to. The teams are built with a medical student, usually is a second-year medical student. Some of the teams have one that have two medical students. There's a first-year intern, and this was the first year we had a program, but it's a first-year intern, and then there's an ADT resident. The ADT resident is actually the foundation on which this is built. They're the ones who sort of drive the program and drive the connections that are made. And then there's a faculty mentor who sort of oversees everything and provides near mentorship for the ADT resident. And you can see how that is built in a tier system. So the teams are matched both with conventional and unconventional methods. So conventional methods would be, we had people submit what their general interests were, specialty interests, research, hobbies. And then our resident team who designed anastomosis tend to, of course, dating websites because they are the best when it comes to making matches. But it looked at stuff like you had to say if you liked horror movies or not, if you wanted to sell everything in your life and live on a boat, well, would you do that? Have you traveled to a foreign country for fun? But all these random questions to see whether we could match people better. And the programs, the teams meet every 3 months or so. Initially, it was over food and drinks in different locations, but because of COVID, we've moved it to a virtual format. And there's a lot of coaching that happens, but there's also literature-based discussion. And this is just to give you some of the things we sort of review over the year. And so it's how do you pick a good mentor, mentee, how you a good mentor, time management, dealing with microaggressions, focusing on diversity within our various spaces, and then finding that work-life balance. So you can see again, sort of the things we cover are slightly different from what happens in the launch team setting.